Hello people and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you my attempt at beating two Pokémon Emerald hardcore Nuzlockes at the same time using only one controller. Now, if you approach a challenge like this from the mechanical point of view, then it gets really trivial. It's very easy to desync games and finish one of the two runs while the other is still stuck in Littleroot. And that would be nothing more than an underwhelming and tedious experience. What I'm aiming to do is to play every battle at the same time, selecting the same moves and switching at the same time. And all of this using completely different Pokémon. So let me be clear, the focus of the challenge is only on the battles against other trainers. What happens outside of battle is not bound by the one controller limitation since, as I said, that's not difficult, just really tedious. With that said, I'll use one controller most of the time in order to have some neat footage to show you. Let's move on to the actual rules section. The basic hardcore Nuzlocke rules are in place, so no items in battle, no over-leveling, I can only catch the first Pokémon in each route as long as I didn't catch it already, set mode must be selected, and a fainted Pokémon has to be boxed forever. Now for the run-specific rules. In battle, I will have to input the same commands in both games. This means, if I use the move on the second slot in Game 1, Game 2 will do the same. If I decide to switch for the third Pokémon in my party, that will happen for both games. If a Pokémon faints in one of the two games, the other must switch accordingly to what has been sent out to replace it. Changing the moves order is forbidden. When I first started, I was considering to allow it during Trainer's Battle, and there's one instance of this happening in a very early fight, but I immediately realized it would have made the game too easy for me and too chaotic for you. So I apologize for this little inconsistency, even though I believe its impact was minimum. I allow myself to skip grinding using PK hacks. I know a lot of people despise skipping grinding, so I figured it would be best to specify this right from the start. No EVs. This is not the same as no EV training. I am going to manually set to 0 all the EVs before every major battle. It might not seem like a big deal, but trust me, the late game is going to be much harder. And lastly, the encounter pool is shared by both games. This will prevent me from building two identical teams of strong and guaranteed encounters, which would defeat the whole purpose of the challenge. So, no double Gyarados, Crobat or Swampert sweeping through both games. There are a couple of grey areas that will probably have to be covered later, and there's the comprehensive ruleset in the description if you're interested, but for now, since I mentioned Swampert, it's a good moment to jump into the runs right at the starter choice. I'm not going to pick Mudkip in any of the two. It's probably the best one of the three, but first, I'm still not ready to play with Mudkip after that solo run I did a while ago, and second, I wanted to add some extra difficulty since these are still vanilla games and are pretty easy by themselves. I'd normally skip the early battles as they aren't really interesting, but in this case they can help familiarize with the setup. The battle against the Zigzagoon is already pretty explanatory. At level 5, Trick and Torchic have respectively Pound and Scratch on the first move slot, so I'm forced to use them at the same time. Same thing with Leer and Growl. Notice that if the turn lasts longer on one of the two games, then the other will wait until they are both done. Also, you see me switching back and forth my moves, but that's just because this was supposed to be an example of how I was going to change moves order during battle. Anyway, Torchic's attack got lowered a couple of times, so by the time Trico gets rid of the Zigzagoon, there's still a battle happening on the right. In cases like this, I will just play out the rest of the fight normally. The battle against May is going to be fairly easy, since I can outlevel her pretty hard, so let's just skip it and see what my first two encounters are going to be. So we have a Poochyena on the left, and a Wingull on the right. Pretty good, I really like my Tiena, and Pelipper can be useful too. As I said, outside of Trainer's Battle I'm not forced to play with one controller, but I'll try to do so as much as possible, because this way it's much easier for you to keep track of what's happening on screen. And look at that! An oddly satisfying synchronized capture with the very first Pokeball. Moving on to the next route, the battle against the youngster is easy, but I need to show it because this is the only instance of me actually changing moves order. Again, sorry about it. I'm willing to challenge the remaining trainers on the route, but while I approach the second youngster, I get my encounter on the left. This is not quite the case, but if one of the two games is engaged in an undesired battle, then the other must start it as soon as possible without making any change to its current team. Anyway, since I don't know what my encounter is gonna be on the right, I nickname the newly captured Rotad Rolls and proceed to challenge the youngster. Don't worry, I won't be so pedantic for the whole video. Just making sure my approach is clear so I can speed things up for the rest of the run. Now, let's see what my early encounters are gonna be. On Route 104, I find a Rumpel and a Marill. Back to Route 103, I still have to get my encounter on the right. Sadly, it's not a Rolls. And I doubt Zigzagoon is gonna be useful this time. Well, I guess I'll have to change Lotad's name as soon as possible. Petalbug Woods offers some really nice encounters. Tailo on the right and Shirumish on the left. I was excited of using Breloom and Swallow, but these two have such bad IVs that they probably won't be usable for the harder fights. At this point, I believe there's no need to show any of the minor battles ahead, but the twins on the bridge before Rustboro offer a good chance to explain my approach to double battles. Additionally to what you've seen already, for double battles the selected moves will have to target the same slot on both games. So in this case, both Quick Attack and Ember on C-Dot. Of course, if one of the two battles becomes a 2v1, I'll just target the remaining Pokémon. Tate and Liza look really scary right now. Anyway, enough with the slow start, let's just jump into the battle against Roxanne. I can't say I expect this to be any difficult. I have lots of grass types on the left and a Marill on the right. Lotad is now Alambre and got its nickname fixed. More importantly, I taught it Ballacid, and I made sure to put it on the last slot to match Mary's water gun. Spamming the two moves should be more than enough. Roxanne is trivial once you have a super effective option. During the run I'll have to be careful when learning new moves. That will be my main way to affect the move's order. Another thing you might have noticed is that while Marill had its experience edge to level up immediately, Lambre didn't. That wasn't a tactical decision, it's just really hard to not miss anything while trying to manage two games at once. Trust me, this won't be my last oversight. Back to the battle, for Nuzpass I'm going to use Growl and Defense Core first, just to be safe and mix things up, but at the end of the day it's all about Ballacid and Water Gun. Easy first gym, but Broly might be really difficult depending on what my next encounters are going to be. The Whismur Cave only has Whismur, surprisingly. The rocks blocking the way don't even have any encounter tied to them, so I decided to catch the weird thing on the left, and since I have no corresponding encounter on the right, I'll just name it Question Mark. Question Mark Whismur is slowly going to become the mascot of the channel. Anyway, I'm mainly interested in the Route 116 encounter. Ninkeda is really common here, and with its typing and decent physical defense, it might be able to do something during the Broly fight. On the left I have Beautifly, but on the right I don't have anything for the second gym right now. Well, that's not an Ninkeda, but if I catch it, Broly is going to be a cakewalk. First, let's see what we have on the left. A 2% Skitty. I don't like it. What I would like is this Great Ball to live up to its name and catch Abra before it teleports away. And despite it being a mere 40% chance, I get the Abra. I guess I'll catch the Skitty too. At least that gives me a nickname for my soon-to-be Kadabra. Jumping ahead to Dewford, Granite Cave offers a lot of good encounters, so I am excited to see what I get. And with a Sableye on the left, at this point Broly's chances to cause issues are 0. I was going to fish for Sableye on both games since a ghost type this early is huge, but since I already found it, I'll get my right encounter on the first floor for that 10% Geodude chance. My mind is already on Watson at this point. Okay game, what's the catch? No way you are being so kind all of a sudden. I mean, I'll take it. And with the encounter part done, let's go face Broly. Feel free to call me out for what you're about to see. It's understandable to make mistakes when playing two games at the same time, but here I literally forgot to swap my leading Pokémon. And the game rightfully punishes me. As I switch in my Kadabra on the right, Machop gets a critical low kick, and apparently Kadabra is a rather heavy Pokémon, so the damage is really significant and leaves me with only 11 HP. This won't affect the outcome of the match since Kadabra is still able to win by simply spamming Confusion, but my plan to steal Makuhita Citrus Berry is ruined. Maybe I was tired or simply distracted while playing this because I didn't even give Kadabra the move Disable, which it's supposed to learn at level 18. I'll fix it after the battle, but at least this oversight literally has zero impact on the run. Anyway, on the left Sableye is having the best time of its life. Broly has no way of damaging a ghost type, so all it has to do is to chill until Kadabra is done and then, once the fight on the right is over, finish the battle at its own pace. Sableye also easily managed to steal the Citrus Berry, so now the run on the left has an edge on the other, at least for what concerns held items. Honestly, I feel like all the good early encounters are on the right, so this balances things out a bit at least. Finally, Makuhita goes down, so let's move on to the late pot. First of all, the Route 110 encounter. On the left we have a Gulpin, and on the right an Electrike. Again, even if I like Gulpin a lot, I have to admit left game is not having the best luck. The Team Aqua the Museum and the regular trainers are not going to be an issue, but there are two potentially really difficult battles ahead. The Slitbot rival and Watson. Watson doesn't really need any explanation, but the rival is actually interesting since May will have a different team based on which starter I chose. Let me show you the battle. I lead with Mightyena and Wingull. As long as I don't crit, I should be able to take down both of the opponents at the same time using Bite and Wing Attack respectively. A flinch on the left makes sure I don't even have to worry about Supersonic, and then a second attack takes down Wingull and Lambre as planned. May now is going to send out Combusken and Slugma since they have a super effective option against my current Pokémon. As the run goes on, it's going to be more and more clear how incredibly important it is to manipulate the order in which the opponent sends out its Pokémon. Anyway, I'm going to switch in my second Pokémon, so that on the left Beautifly can easily tank a double kick, and on the right Geodude just loses a single HP from Rock Throw. Beautifly is safe from most critical Embers roll, but it needs 2 Gust to take down Combusken, and using Gust means Geodude will have to select Magnitude. Hopefully I won't roll too high and Slugma will be able to take 2 hits as well. Unlucky? Hard to say after rolling a Magnitude 10. But now I need a plan B. I can't afford to use Gust again and stay in another turn with Geodude, otherwise Marstomp's Water Gun will make me experience the first death of the runs. Luckily, I set up my team in a way that should work. So it's time for the Pokémon on the third slot to come out. Sableye is decently bulky and has 4 levels of Combusken, so a crit doesn't even deal half HP, while Water Gun does a pitiful amount of damage to my recently evolved Azumarill. Nightshade finishes off Combusken and Water Gun. Let's say that Marstomp is no longer full HP. Lombre and Marstomp were supposed to be the last 2 Pokémon, so I'm back on track. Mightyena and Wingull are back out, and they should be able to at least soften them up. The major problem is Marstomp, and I probably should have just attacked instead of gambling on Supersonic, more so considering that Sand Attack is useless against a Lambre with Nature Power. But the result isn't so bad. Once Wingull goes down to 26 HP, I know that putting Marshtomp in Torrent would mean risking a crit, so I decide to send out Lambre and Kadabra. I made sure to replace the move on the first slot with Fake Out, so now I can make my opponent flinch on the left, while on the right, Kadabra finishes off Marshtomp with Psybeam, ending the battle. Lambre by itself is not a problem, and mine is stronger, so after a couple of turns I'm free to move on. Richie Moville gives me access to the Game Corner TMs, and they are going to be crucial in order to make this run work. As you've previously seen with RULESET, a TM is an excellent tool to have the right move in the right slot. And on top of that, the TMs at the Game Corner are virtually infinite. Before battling Watson, I'll get my encounter on Route 117. An Oddish on the right, and Illumise on the left. Not sure yet what I'm going to do with these two, but it's good to finally have a Grass type on the right. Nothing else to do except challenging the gym. Watson leads with Voltorb, and my main goal is to prevent it from using Self-Destruct. On the left, Sableye won't have to worry about that thanks to its typing, and Kadabra, despite its jolly nature, one-shots Voltor with Psychic and gets the level up. On the other hand, Sablaze's damage is average at best, so the battle on the left is going at a much slower pace. Fake Out is not an option now, and Astonish will deal slightly more damage, but that means Kadabra will have to settle for the much weaker Confusion. All part of the plan. Breloom and Combusken will take it from here. It's a free switch on the right due to the healing turn, and even if Breloom gets paralyzed by Spark, a Cherry Berry cures the annoying status condition. Mach Punch and Flamethrower easily take down Voltor and Electrike, so we can move on to the next Pokémon. Before that, let me just replace Sablaze Astonish with Detect. Man, this Pokémon has so much utility early on. Anyway, I'm not too worried about Electrike, but Magneton has to go as soon as possible, so I select again Mach Punch and Flamethrower. Electrike goes down to red and hits a weak Shockwave, while Combusken lands another strong Flamethrower for the one shot. Magneton Thunder Wave procced my Cherry Berry though, so I have to be careful now, more so considering that Manectric comes out and that can be a really scary opponent. Knowing Electrike is going to be healed, I switch to Headbutt and Double Kick. Headbutt doesn't have stab, but it still deals more damage than Mach Punch, so Electrike goes down, and in the meantime Combusken's Double Kick hurts more than expected thanks to a crit. The price to pay is a paralysis from static, but I'm going to stay in another turn to allow Breloom to land at least a Mach Punch on Magneton. Really good damage on both sides, but now I have to switch. Loudred and Geodude are out, and I was expecting to see Watson heal in both games, but apparently Magneton was just barely out of potion range, so Loudred has to tank a Sonic Boom right away. Not good, I'm gonna have to risk a crit now. Thankfully Shockwave doesn't kill my Loudred, and Flamethrower plus a Magnitude 8 take down both of Watson's Pokémon. The battle on the right is now over, but I still have to deal with Manectric on the left. Turns out, having a Kadabra with Psychic, a Combusken with Flamethrower and a good ground type makes the Watson fight easy. But here my only actual good Pokémon is Breloom. Without being tied to the other game, I'm free to set up a Leech Seed and then slowly but surely win the battle without risking too much. Honestly, I shouldn't have let Grovyle land the final blow on the last turn. By the look of it, an High Roll Quick Attack crit would have killed it. But that didn't happen, so with another badge acquired and no deaths yet, I'm happy to move on. Also, not evolving Geodude here. Graveler delays a lot of good moves, so I'm going to wait if I can help it. The next major fights are Maxie at Mount Chimney and Flannery in Lava Ridge. But before facing them, there's a lot of traveling around the region I have to do. First I go back to Dewford to use the Old Road. Magikarp and Tentacool have a 70 and 30% chance to be fished respectively. So depending on which of the two games gets encountered first, I can reasonably assume it's going to get a Gyarados. Might seem like I'm giving all the good encounters to the game on the right, but I expect Tentacool and Tentacruel to be better for the majority of the run. On my way to Meteor Falls, I decide to give the Route 112 encounter to the left game. Only Numel and Marill can be found here, and that game has a clear lack of fire and ground types. So here we go. Exclamation mark the Numel. Really promising name. I hope the nickname theme is not making things more confusing than they should be. I wasn't so sure of it at the start, but I have to say, it grew on me. Take the Route 114 encounters. There's something funny in calling a Burbsy Viper and a scary snake Swablu. Anyway, all the other encounters are getting delayed except for the Meteor Falls ones. I know that I might get a Bagon later, but that's too far into the run, and it's not even guaranteed if I'm not mistaken. So, since there are only Zubat and Solrock and the latter is much less common, I am going for the Zubat on the right and, as a result, a guaranteed Solrock on the left. Before advancing, I need to do one last backtrack to Slateport to get the TMs for Hidden Power and Secret Power from the shop, and then I'm finally ready to move on. The grunts at Mount Chimney are severely underleveled and don't pose a threat to my team at all. Tapdas Numel even gets a magnitude 10 against my Mightyena, but not even a crit would have killed me. So yeah, let's just see Maxie. Tentacool and Pelipper should be able to solo the fight. I made sure to have Tentacool's Bubble Beam on the second slot to match Pelipper's Water Gun, and they both have Ice Beam on the third one. Mightyena will take a while, but Tentacool has Clear Body and Pelipper has Keen Eye, so I'm not risking any accuracy drop from Sand Attack. A Bubble Beam crit results on Mightyena going down first on the left game, but then Camerupt comes out, so I'm okay with using another Bubble Beam while the Mightyena on the right goes down as well. Now both games have to deal with Zubat, but that's why I have Ice Beam. So they both get one shot, and all is left to do is to use a simple water gun with Pelipper to delete Camerapt. Easy and really straightforward battle. The fight against Flannery is not necessarily as easy, but in this case, it couldn't be more straightforward. Before showing you what I mean, let's see real quick the Jagged Pass encounter. A Machop on the left, nice, and therefore a Spoink on the right. We'll talk about these two later maybe. For now, let's jump into the 4th gym battle. I mentioned at the start of the video that there were a couple of grey areas in my rule set. Multi-turn moves are one of them. My idea is that as long as one of the two games is locked into a multi-turn move, the other is forced to use the same move as well. In this case, after setting up and harden with Solrock and a defense core with Azumarill, I'm going to spam rollout with both. It's clearly really hard to manage this, as once I select rollout, I'm not even able to wait on the menu screen until both games ended the turn. So I decided to do this whole fight using exclusively rollout, just so I can go wrong. While the fight plays itself out, I want to point out that this Solrock has amazing stats and Azumarill has huge power. And that's really what's allowing this strategy to be viable, despite it not being perfectly accurate. Also, Solrock got rollout from the move tutor in Removal, so it was really easy to have it on the same slot as Azumarill. I'll try to stay away from multi-turn moves though, I don't want to accidentally break my rule set. Anyway, while Solrock replaces Harden with Cosmic Power, Azumarill lands one final rollout and finishes the battle. Flannery is defeated, so now it's time for me to head towards Petalburg. Before that, I can get a couple of new encounters. And while I'm usually really careful when it comes to catching new Pokémon, here I'm going to make a silly mistake. First of all, since I already got the Machop from the Jagged Pass, there's no point on delaying the Fury Path encounter anymore. I was hoping to get a Torkoal, and while I'm satisfied with a Coughing on the left, right game gets a useless Slugma. I really wish Slugma and Magcargo were better in these games, but I have to admit their biggest upside is that I don't mind risking losing them. Anyway, the mistake I mentioned is about the desert encounters. Mirage Tower counts as a different area and only Trapinch and Sentry can be found there. But for some reason I decided to skip it and go straight for the route encounter. Of course I found exactly Sentry and Trapinch, so I basically denied myself an encounter. Not a big deal maybe, but I would have loved a Cacnea on the right. The Oddish I have there is kinda terrible. No way to miss the most important Pokémon of the area though. From the top of Mirage Tower I can still take the two Fossil that will count as my Rust Bower encounter once I revive them at the Devon Corporation. Lilip and Credilli are not that good, but Enrith and Armaldo are incredibly strong thanks to Battle Armor. Not only that, but Enrith also learns Protect within the current level cap, and that's going to be really useful. Before advancing to the next gym, I have to do a couple of errands. By going all the way back to Full Arbor, I can exchange the Meteorite for a Return TM, and more importantly, I can give a couple of hot scales to the Move Relearner to adjust few movesets. Also, I accidentally got the Route 113 encounter, so I guess it's no longer up to me to decide which game gets the Skarmory. But enough talking. Let's skip ahead to the Petalburg gym and see the battle against my father. Spinda is first and I lead with Machoke and Combusken. They are both going to be able to one-shot Spinda, but Machoke is lower, so that Spinda will get a chance to have it say. I anticipated a Tito Dance, but Psybeam shouldn't matter as long as it doesn't crit and my Persim Berry would cure the confusion. Also, Combusken learns Quick Attack at level 32. Good to have a priority move, but that seems a bit too late to be actually useful. Vigoroth is second, and since I'm aiming to have the two battles as coordinated as possible, the thing I fear the most is getting a crit in either of the two games. First of all, I switch to Low Kick and Flamethrower. Vigoroth is faster and Facade hits hard, but I'm not in danger and both of my moves are guaranteed to put it into potion range while never killing it. Staying in is not safe anymore, but I can use the healing turn to attack again before switching. Thankfully I don't crit and now it's time to send out Sableye and Enrith. I won't have access to another Return TM until I reach Pacific Log, so I was a bit reluctant to use here the only one I had. But I know this fight can easily get out of control between the Slaking and the Belly-Drum Linoone, so not the best time to be stingy. Anyway, after getting rid of Vigoroth, I'm still decently healthy on both sides, so for now I'm perfectly on track with the plan. But Norman sends out Slaking, and that really confused me. As far as you know, the neutral order consists in Linoone third and Slaking last, and this should be no different since there's no super effective move that can make the AI change it. I'm guessing the AI didn't account for my double typings. Feint Attack is super effective on ghosts, and counter, even if doesn't deal damage by itself, has the type advantage on rock. I don't know, but the important is that both games are still coordinated despite the unexpected. It's not coincidence that I tied Sableye and Anorith to the same slot. Both have a way to stall Slaking during the active turn while lowering its defense while it's loafing around. Rock Smash only has a 50% chance to drop the opponent's defense, but in the long run it's almost guaranteed to have a really crippled opponent. Alepa Berry makes sure I have enough detect PP with Sableye, and once I'm absolutely certain return is enough for both sides, I go for the kill. Now, Linoone has no way of damaging Sableye, and I don't need to take it down in both games at the same time. So I'm going to fully focus on the right one. I'm just paranoid of it using Belly Drum and then healing, so first I go for Rock Smash to chip away some HP and maybe get the defense drop. No defense drop, but no Belly Drum either, so I should be fine to use Return twice. A timid Anorith is kinda awful for the rest of the run, but here the extra speed was crucial to make things much more consistent. Without EVs on my stats, outspeeding is not something to take for granted. Anyway, with Linoone down, Norman is finally defeated, which means I'll now be able to use Surf. After obtaining the good rod I now have access to, I get back to Petalburg to fish for the city encounter. I'd love to have a Shell Armor Crawdont on the left. First I use the old rod on the right game to get a golden dupe, and then I can guarantee the Corphish with a good rod. Sadly, this has the ability Hyper Cutter, so its value is pretty much only tied to the typing of its evolution. There are a couple of big encounters before Winona. One of them is the guaranteed electric type from New Mauville. We have a Magnemite on the left, and a Voltorb on the right. Not bad, I got the Steel type in the game that was missing it, and it even has Magnet Pull to help me find other Steel types in case I need to. On my way to Fortree, I can catch a Feebas. Since Milotic is basically a better Tentacruel, I decided to give it the encounter to the right game, which, honestly, was missing a good Water type regardless. Not going to waste time talking in detail about the battle against the admin at the Weather Institute. Machoke and Combusken can easily pull their way through thanks to their fighting moves and a Persim Berry to avoid Swagger shenanigans from Mightyena. But Cast Form counts as my left game encounter, and while it's unlikely in a run like this, I really hope I'll get the chance to use it. A fight that surely deserves more attention is the one against May. Again, she has two different teams, so I'll have to set mines accordingly. She leads with Pelipper and Lambre. I send out my newly evolved Magneton and Swallow. Spark and Wing Attack are going to one-shot both of my opponents, but turn 1 is wasted by Protect on one side and by Fake Out on the other. Unless Pelipper gets a second Protect in a row, I should be perfectly fine, and it doesn't, so far so good. The next two Pokémon should be Combusken and Slugma, and I have a switch ready for them, Solrock and Azumarill. Sadly, Solrock gets its accuracy dropped by Sand Attack right away, so things might get a bit more difficult. For now, luck seems to be by my side, as I land an already inaccurate Rock Throw on Combusken, while Azumarill stalls with Ice Beam. A single Ball Cap won't make Double Kick really dangerous, but it's not a wise choice to let it set up any further, so time to give the final blow with Psychic and Bubble Beam. And there's the miss. As I said, Double Kick isn't too dangerous yet, but I was paranoid of it critting on both hits, so after May sends out her Marsh Stomp on the right, I decide to switch for Tentacruel and Pelipper. Surf and Protect are excellent to make sure the left game catches up, as Combusken gets outsped in one shot, while absolutely nothing happens on the right. Now that May has Lambre and Marsh Stomp out, I can send my two counters as planned, Coughing and Vileplume. The combination of Sludge and Absorb is more than adequate to safely win both battles. Coughing has a good physical defense, and Lambre's best move is Swift, and even if Vileplume takes a bit of damage from takedown, it's faster and can heal most of it with a simple Absorb. On a side note, I kinda defaulted to Vileplume without thinking. Hopefully I won't regret it. With May defeated, I usually prepare myself for the long trip to Lilikov, since reaching the city opens for a lot of new options. The Department Store, the Move Tutor for Substitute, the Rest DM, Lamberries, the Safari Zone encounters, not to mention the game on the right would even be able to evolve Feebas. But I was sure there was a way to do the Winona battle without all of this, and even when it got clear I was about to play the hardest battle of the run so far, delaying Lilikov had become a challenge with myself. I need the Devon Scope to access the gym though, so I'm kinda forced to do the Route 112 encounter first. I go for the static Heckler on the left, and thanks to the repel trick I can guarantee an Absol on the right. I really need a Dark type there if I want to have a chance against Tate and Liza. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We don't care about the gym trainers, let's just go and face the 4-3 leader. Winona is probably the gym leader with the widest type variety, and that made it really difficult to manage two battles at the same time. After the confusing choice for Norman to send out his Lakin first, I also feel like my knowledge on the logic determining the opponent's next Pokémon is really shaky. And that might have led me to overthink a couple of things. Anyway, Swablu is first and I lead with Loudred and Grumpig, both of which happen to have a decent electric hidden power. Not decent enough to one-shot of course, and even two-shotting would be a range, so I need to finish off Swablu with Ice Beam and Psychic. Swablu isn't really able to do anything, and even Parry Song is useless against Loudred due to Soundproof. Just another example of Soundproof being the best ability in the game. There is no super effective move against my two Pokémon in Winona's team, so I can safely expect Pelipper. And once again, I was wrong. The two situations are exactly the same, so at least Winona sends out Tropius in both games. I need to try and stay on track as much as possible. The plan was to deal with Tropius with Swalot and Crobat, using a combination of Sludge and Wing Attack. While Crobat has a better typing and stats to deal with Tropius, Swalot is still solid, but a bit less advantaged. It doesn't have the Sunny Day on the switch, and the critical aerial ace right after. I also got a low Sludge roll, so for the final hit, I better switch to Ice Beam and Air Cutter, a 95% accurate move. I couldn't go for Ice Beam from the get-go, because it had a small chance to one-shot Tropius and ruin the rest of the battle as a result. No misses, but here is where overthinking put me in serious trouble. Altaria is obviously the hardest Pokémon to deal with, and while there's no doubt Swalot is going to bait it since it's weak to Earthquake, I foolishly thought that being Pot Poison would have been enough to have the same result with Crobat. And as you might have guessed, that isn't the case, so now I have to deal with Altaria and Pelipper. Thankfully Pelipper is kinda useless for the most part. Come to think of it, I could have probably stick to the plan without risking too much. But instead I decided to gamble my Swalot and went for Ice Beam. I'm only dead to Earthquake crit, and I dodge it. Nice. Dragon Dance was an option too, but I wasn't really afraid about it since I'm now switching to my Intimidate Pokémon anyway. Doesn't really matter what's happening on the right, but as far as Mightyena is concerned, it's decently bulky to tank a couple of Earthquakes even if they crit. Case in point, a crit puts Mightyena in yellow. The Citrus Berry makes sure I'm still safe, so time to use Scary Face to drop Alteria's speed to the ground. Dragon Breath doesn't paralyze, that could have been bad, and Scary Face thankfully doesn't miss. I really hate how Scary Face has a 90% accuracy. It has such niche uses and I feel like it makes sense on just few Pokémon anyway. But I'm digressing. Thanks to the attack drop, Altaria won't select Earthquake, so I can safely send out Tentacruel and Manectric. Dragon Dance is perfect and I can finally do something that makes sense in both games. Ice Beam and Spark will take both of my opponents down, unless Pelipper keeps spamming Protect. Well, at least the biggest threat is down in the left game. I am a bit unsure on what to do now. I ended up going for the coordinated kill, so while Tentacruel softens up Skarmory with Bubble Beam, Manectric has to awkwardly spam Thunder Wave, an oddly fitting behavior when facing a Pelipper. Anyway, Ice Beam and Spark both hit their target this time, so we can move on. Pelipper is last on the left, and Altaria is finally out on the right. Back to my Intimidators, Gyarados should be able to two-shot Altaria with Ice Beam while not being worried about taking damage. A Cherry Berry even prevents any paralysis shenanigans. Mightyena on the other hand, despite the low HP, is only dead to Water Gun's highest crit roll, so I feel pretty confident sending it out. Pelipper wastes most of his turns anyway. It was a long journey, but all is left to do is to take out Winona's last Pokémon. Loudred and Grumpig should be able to do so thanks to their hidden power. And on the second turn, Loudred gets a crit for the one shot, ending the battle on the left and letting the run on the right finish by itself. I sure hope this wasn't too tedious or chaotic for you. I foresee fights like this to be more and more common as the run goes on. With the new level cap of 42, my teams become really strong, and yet I'll have to fight a bunch of under-leveled grunts. Not even showing the battles versus the Team Aqua at Mount Pyre, but on Route 121 I get 2 more encounters, Sharpet on the right and Whalmer on the left. Good to finally have a ghost type on both games, but not sure if I will use it. The Magma hideout is mainly swept by the combination of Tentacruel and Seeking with Surf and Ice Beam. Rare footage of someone using Seeking in an Hoenn game right here. For Maxi though, that's not going to be enough, so let's at least see the battle against him. My Tiana is first and my Wailord and Milotic make their first appearance. Milotic is the overall stronger of the two, but Wailord gets access to Water Spout before Tate and Liza. And as you can see, while at full HP, that deals significantly more damage than Milotic Surf. So while my Tiana faints on the left, on the right it just goes down to red and lands a Scary Face, which means Maxi is going to heal. I decide to go for another Water Spout plus Surf, but Crobot decides to attack and gets a crit with Air Cutter. A lower HP means the Water Spout damage is crippled, so while my Tiana goes down on the right, Crobot is not even in yellow. Now is a good time to switch to Ice Beam. 2 hits are going to be enough for Milotic, but Wailord has a weaker special attack, so the Super Potion spam for Maxi keeps Crobot alive. Back to Water Spout and Surf, Milotic is able to one-shot Maxi's last Pokémon and win the battle, while Wailord finally takes out Crobot. Camerupt is last and I'm too low to use Water Spout, but Water Pulse is just as good. Easy battle, and I don't feel like wasting time in the Aqua hideout in Lily Cove. They are just a weaker version of what you've seen here. Time to reach Mostip and prepare for the battle against Tate and Liza. First I get the Super Rod. There's only one eligible encounter left in the city, and that's Sharpedo. I have enough Dark types on the left, so I let the other game get it. Then I head back to Lily Cove to buy some TMs at the department store. The rival is blocking the entrance, but for once I'm not fighting her with a Winona level cap, so this should be easy enough. Her team are still different but have 2 Pokémon in common. One is Tropius, which is obviously not going to leave an Ice Beam from either Wailord or Milotic. The other one is Ludicolo, which, since it has a Grass move, is sent out second in both games. I switched to Weezing and Crobat, but despite the level advantage, I couldn't line up my moves in a way that guarantees a one-shot in both sides. So first I must use Smokescreen and Air Cutter, and then I can finish off Ludicolo with Sludge and Leech Life. Pelipper and Slugma come out, so I send out Solrock and Vibrava. They should be fine dealing with the rest of the battle, but Vibrava gets burned on the switch, and after a couple of turns spent using Rock Slide and Crunch, Vibrava's HP has gotten a bit too low for my taste. Not a big deal, Camerupt and Gyarados are ready for backup. It might take a bit longer for Gyarados, but Camerupt can hit Combusken for super effective damage with a Stab Earthquake that, despite the 2 ball caps, is still going to one-shot the weird-shaped chicken. No need to wait too long before the battle on the right comes to an end too, so no more rival battles for the rest of the run. All I need from the department store are a couple of Protect TMs, and with those in the bag, after a really long preparation, I can finally face Tate and Liza. Planning for 2 double battles was difficult enough, but I feel like describing both of them at the same time is going to be just as challenging. The general plan is to use Water Spout and Surf a couple of times with Wailord and Milotic, while Machoke and Crobat bait Psychic from both Xatu and Claydol. Water Spout is going to deal more damage than Surf, but I have thoroughly planned everything. In a Nuzlocke you always want to play around critical hits from the opponents, but in this run where I want things to be as coordinated as possible, my own crits can be just as dangerous. And Wailord really had to take down Claydol with a crit and put Xatu into potion range with another crit. So much for spending hours planning. So Solrock comes out on the left, while on the right the enemies barely took any damage. I have to come up with a plan B, but unfortunately there's not much I can do. Solrock is faster and doesn't always see a kill against Machoke, it's about a 50%, and if it decides to use Sunny Day, I'm in serious trouble. I'll just have to follow the main plan for now. Water Spout and Surf again, while I switch the other Pokémon for Sableye and Sharpedo. As long as they all attack the switching Pokémon with Psychic, I'll be fine. At least for now. And good, Solrock didn't set up Sunny Day. But I'm now in another really sticky situation. Let's focus the attention on the game on the left for a moment. Xatu has Sunny Day as well, and it's faster than everything else on the field. You can see Sableye only has 43 HP. That's the value needed to guarantee a Solar Beam from Solrock, but if Xatu sets up the strong Sunlight first, then not only Sableye would go down, but I'd probably wipe. I can't afford running such a big risk. After some thinking, I realized that I still have Fake Out on Sableye. Using that on Xatu would prevent it from using Sunny Day and would result in Sharpedo using Slash, which, while it's not really what I want, it has at least an increased critical ratio that might help taking down the Xatu on the right. So let's see what happens. Xatu flinches and Claydol is healed with an Hyper Potion. Then Solrock takes in Sunlight as expected, and Sharpedo sadly doesn't get the crit, resulting in Xatu being able to use Confuse Ray on Milotic. So while a Water Spout from Wailord takes down both of the opponents, Milotic hurts himself in confusion instead. Suddenly the battle on the left is almost over, and it's the one on the right that mostly worries me. Claydol is really likely about to use Earthquake, and Xatu will be healed full HP, so I cannot afford to make too many switches and let it set up Calm Mind. A combination of Ice Beam from Milotic and Crunch from Sharpedo is guaranteed to kill Claydol, but there's the confusion effectively making it a 50% chance instead. I couldn't think of anything better, so I just went for it. Come on Milotic, you can do it. Yes. And with Sableye destroying Lunaton with Shadow Ball on the left, I can now independently play the rest of the battle on the right. I'm willing to keep Milotic in the field as long as it isn't in danger, so I go for another Surf and switch out the Sharpedo for Crobat. Xatu wasn't going to attack Sharpedo with Psychic anyway, and Solrock saw a kill with Solar Beam, but Milotic is still confused and hurts itself. I have to be careful now. Xatu already has one Calm Mind setup. I'm sure he will target Crobat with Psychic, so he wastes his turn with Protect, and Milotic finally snaps out of confusion and lands a Surf. Xatu doesn't take much damage, but there's a good chance Solrock goes down to another one even after the Cetus Berry. Once again, I'm sure there's a Psychic coming from Xatu, so I switch out Crobat for Sharpedo, and while Solrock survives Surf, it goes for Psychic on Sharpedo as well, so I'm in a really good position right now. In fact, let's speed things up. The rest is just about spamming Surf with Milotic and Crunch with Sharpedo, while Tate and Liza try in vain to keep their Pokémon alive with potions and berries. I have to admit I got really scared at some point, but the runs are still alive and really strong. I wasn't expecting to get to this point without a death in either games. Moving on, the double battle against the Team Magma at the Space Center is not going to get as much attention as the one we just saw. I just spammed Water Spout and Surf with the now most iconic duo of the video. A Persimmon Berry also helped with the confusion shenanigans, and I had to use Ice Beam with both at one point, but the point is, Wailord and Milotic did most of the job. Not exactly sure what I was afraid about, but I decided to switch for Kecleon and Armaldo near the end to finish off the enemy's last Pokémon. I guess at least it is a chance to see 2 new Pokémon. I am positively impressed by the variety of Pokémon I'm finding myself to use during this challenge. It's not long until the Team Magma is defeated on both sides, and I would skip directly to the battle against Archie if it wasn't that before that I felt the need to get a couple of really important encounters. First of all, I head towards the Safari Zone with the sole purpose of catching a Pikachu in the left game. There are quite a few possible encounters, but I can narrow them down to Girafarig and Pikachu thanks to the Repel trick. Also, I didn't mention it, but I got the Wild Attack from Lavaridge, so Wobbuffet counts as a dupe. Anyway, Girafarig is far more common than Pikachu, so I get the encounter on the right first. Here's the Girafarig as expected, and thanks to the Pokéblock trick I have a really good chance of catching it, and I do. So it's just a matter of time until I find Pikachu in the left game. Luck seems to be by my side, as I even get one with the best possible nature. The other important encounter is Staryu. It can only be found in Lilycove using the Super Rod, and it's the only eligible Pokémon left there, so I have to decide which game gets it. I'm planning to use Stormy in the game on the right, and even if this Staryu turned out to be really underwhelming stat-wise, it still should be able to fulfill its purpose. Before getting into more serious matters, let's see the battle against Archie. Using 2 fast electric types should guarantee me the win, and the left game is no longer lacking such a Pokémon. Thunderbolt puts my Tiana down to red, and while Raichu gets slowed by Scary Face, Electrode is confused by Swagger. Both of them have a Piercing Berry equipped, so this is not a problem, but I should have used Agility with Raichu during the healing turn instead of attacking again with Thunderbolt. Sometimes it's just like this. I'm already thinking of a later fight that concerns me, and I forget what I've planned for the battle I'm currently playing. Anyway, my Tiana goes down, and second is Crobat. Thunderbolt will one-shot it, but Raichu is obviously not going to outspeed anymore, so it has to hit a wing attack. Really surprised Crobat didn't go for Confuse right there. Last is Sharpedo, and same as before it's a one-shot, but Raichu has to take a hit. Slash crits, but I'm way too healthy to be worried. I have to say, the fights versus the team leaders were pretty easy. I'll still have flashbacks due to the double level run I did a while ago, but this for sure helped getting over the trauma. Defeating Archie pretty much means my next opponent is Juan in Sutopolis. But before that, and after doing all the lore related stuff, I go to Evergrande and start fishing. I don't really care what encounter I get in each game, the important thing is that Wild Lavdisc have a 50% chance to hold an outscale, and I have 2 Pokémon able to use Thief. Lumbre on the left, which learns it naturally at level 37, and Kadabra on the right, which is since the Watson battle that doesn't see the daylight. Infinite access to the move relearner combined with the move deleter in Lilikov will allow me to be really flexible with my movesets, to a point where I only have to worry about TM moves that have no way to be learned again. This explanation is needed not only for the upcoming gym battle, but also for the endgame fights that I'm sure will require precise planning when it comes to movesets and moves order. Now let's go to Sutopolis and face the final gym leader. First is Lavdisc, and I lead with my 2 fast electric types. Both are able to outspeed and one-shot Lavdisc with Thunderbolt, so this is going to be a really smooth start. The outcome is really predictable too. 2 pure electric types cannot bait anything different than the ground type in one's team. Notice that Tentacruel and Sharpedo level up too thanks to the experience share. This is important for later, especially for Tentacruel that at level 47 learns Scritch. Anyway, Whiscash is out, so tend to switch to Beautifly and Gyarados. I should have paid more attention, as on the right Whiscash didn't see a kill and went for Rain Dance instead of Earthquake. It shouldn't matter, but still. First, I'm going to use Giga Drain and Dragon Rage. The idea is to put Whiscash into potion range on the left and do some chip damage on the right. Only a crit or a max roll Giga Drain will kill Whiscash, and guess what happens? Okay, this is awkward. Why do everything seem to go wrong in this run? Now I'll probably have to risk a couple of crits to put things back on track. Risking Beautifly is affordable, so I go for another Giga Drain plus Dragon Rage. The damage is decent, but an Aurora Beam from Celio pretty much forces me to switch. I could use another Giga Drain to finish it off, but that would mean putting Whiscash into potion range, and therefore making the 2 games even less coordinated and difficult to manage. So I go for the switch on 2 of my backup Pokémon, Wailord and Grumpig. Wailord enters the battle just fine, but Grumpig gets confused by Water Pulse. The one time I'd prefer to have on tempo, I have Thick Fat, of course. I'm out of crit range and switching back and forth would make things 100% worse, so I decide to stay in and use Water Spout and Psychic. I'm not happy with the outcome though. Not because Celio gets a crit with Body Slam and paralyzes Wailord, but because Psychic rolled a bit high on Whiscash and it seems to be in healing range. Of course, having one of my Pokémon paralyzed and the other confused seals the deal. I need to switch. So I pivot through Magneton and Armaldo with the intention to bait a Water Pulse from both the opponents and then work from there. I'm usually pretty decent when it comes to recognize a Pokémon in potion range, but I guess during this challenge I'm really failing to demonstrate it, and as I switch, Whiscash attacks with Earthquake. This changes everything. Whiscash is faster and I would much rather save my HP on Armaldo, but I feel like taking down Whiscash is too important right now. So while Magneton hits a strong spark that, due to its adamant nature, is unlikely to take down Celio, Armaldo has to take quite a bit of damage before landing a return for the kill. And just like that, we are back on track. Kinda. Raichu and Electrode will take it from here. Even if they have to tank a Water Pulse on the switch, they have a Lumberry kept in case of confusion, and then they can easily Thunderbolt their way through. Both Celio go down, and the 2 Crawdaunt are going to experience a satisfying coordinated defeat as well. Kindra is of course the biggest threat with his double team plus rest strategy. Really scary, but Tentacruel can completely wall it, and Sharpedo is to a lesser extent able to fulfill the same role. First of all, I start spamming Screech with both of them. It's inaccurate and Kindra's double teams are not going to help, but the upside is that I have a lot of turns to land as many as possible, ideally 3 in each game. Honestly, I feel like a water type with Screech is the best strategy to use against this Kindra, at least for a vanilla Nuzlocke. And if you don't have a Tentacruel anymore, there's still Sharpedo or, much better, the guaranteed Golduck from the Safari Zone. Anyway, as expected, it took a while, but first Sharpedo and then Tentacruel are able to achieve their goal, while not even taking too much damage in the process. Now, while the right team has a way to safely one-shot Kindra, the left team doesn't, so it's best if I can land a hit with Tentacruel before switching. Of course, this means that Sharpedo has to stay in battle too, and it's not really a bulky Pokémon, so even if it resists all of Kindra's moves, I had to give it defensive options, whereas Tentacruel has offensive ones. Doesn't matter if I hit Secret Power or Acid, I'll select whatever makes more sense for the Sharpedo. Speaking of which, I use the Rest TM on it. It might seem like a waste, but remember that I have a Zigzagoon in that game, and the Rest TM is actually one of the items obtainable via pickup starting at level 51. So within the next level cap. I still might have risked a crit at some point, but after missing 3 times, Tentacruel is not only able to land a Secret Power, but it also crits for the one shot. Not sure if it matters, but nice. The real issue is that to finish the battle on the right, I want to send out my Swallow with Aerial Ace, but my pivot to guarantee I don't switch into Ice Beam was supposed to be Armaldo, which has been considerably weakened. I can partially fix the problem by making an extra pivot through Gyarados, but even then, I have to make a tough decision. Ice Beam leaves Armaldo with 41 HP, which means it's out of most Ice Beam ranges, but there's still a chance Kindra goes for it over Water Pulse. The right play is to sacrifice something to allow a clean switch to Swallow, but the dream of a deathless run is still alive, and all I need to keep it that way is to gamble just a little bit. So yeah, I couldn't refrain from doing the riskiest play and send out Swallow. Come on, Water Pulse is much more likely. Yes. And I was also dead to high roll crit plus poison damage. But in the end, it all went down in the best way possible, and my Swallow is able to outspeed and hit a guts boosted Aerial Ace for the one shot. All the badges acquired and not even a single loss. I'm honestly surprised. Between me and the Elite Four there is only Victory Road, but with the new level cap of 55, I don't expect to have any issue. Not even against Wally. My Pokémon are 10 or more levels above his team, so it should be no surprise that Wailord and Milotic are able to outspeed and one-shot almost everything. Both Altaria die to a double Ice Beam, Magneton is too fragile to tank either Surf or Water Spout, Roselia has no chances of surviving an Ice Beam, Delcatty is Delcatty, so as long as I use my stab options, it just goes down in a single hit as well. For the Gardevoir, I'm gonna have to reveal 2 of my Elite Four Pokémon, Mightyena and Absol. I use the Shadow Ball TM on them, and after setting up Howl and Source Dance, a single hit is going to be more than enough. While Mightyena is able to hit through a double team and finish the battle as soon as possible, Absol is having some issues. It doesn't help the fact that I have a really slow one and Gardevoir gets to set up a second double team. And a third one. And a fourth one. Come on, how hard can it be to hit a single Shadow Ball? With a fully set up evasion, Gardevoir starts using Calm Mind. It wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't a Future Sight ignores type effectiveness and is therefore able to hit dark types. As I said, this is a Pokémon I am planning to bring to the Elite Four. Come on! I literally missed 9 times in a row. You really want to make it 10, don't you? Finally! Imagine getting swept by Wally's Gardevoir. I mean, this was really unlucky, but I should have used the earliest TM on Absol. A small mistake is still a mistake, so no one else to blame but me, I guess. Anyway, I'll spare you the part where I wander around the region to pick up all the items and TMs I need for the final battles, including the numerous visits to the Tree Cows to finally obtain a magnet. After a lot, and I really mean a lot of planning, I'm still not sure if I'm ready to fight the Elite Four and the champion. You've seen how pretty much all of my plans for the gym leaders turned out to be inaccurate. And if I still manage to come out on top without even a single death, the fight ahead won't be so forgiving. I could stay here another 10 minutes talking about the upcoming battles, but let's not do that, and without further ado, let's start with Sydney. There are two issues with Sydney's Mightyena. One is the Intimidate at the start of the battle, and the other is the potential sand attack on the first turn. I lead with Raichu and Electrode. I don't really want to use them in this battle, they are just here to take the Intimidate and are both in Mightyena's skill range to make sure I don't switch into a sand attack. For this battle I want to use Sceptile and Blaziken, and ideally Mightyena will use Crunch over Double Edge on the switch. Crunch on the left, Double Edge on the right. Seems fair. Both of my Pokémon have a White Herb to counter the already mentioned sand attack, so I use the first turn to set up a Sunny Day with Sceptile, while Blaziken stalls with Protect. Double Edge is a bit unlucky, but despite the significant damage, I was out of crit range. Now a combination of Solar Beam and Brick Break should dispose of most of Sydney's team. Mightyena goes down, giving a level up to 4 of my Pokémon. That extra level is important for later. Second are Absol and Shiftry. While I'm not going to have any issue with them, I immediately realized that my plan was really flawed. It now appears really obvious that Sydney is not going to send out his Pokémon in the same order in both games, but during the intense planning I did, I failed to consider it. I know, it's a really silly mistake. I felt like I was missing something, but now we're here and with Shiftry and Absol the situation is a bit awkward. The best I can do is to use Aerialist and Flamethrower, hoping that Shiftry doesn't use Swagger and Flamethrower doesn't one-shot Absol. This Blaziken has a really good special attack though, so there's about a 50% chance to score the kill. No Swagger, but Absol faints. Also, in case you were wondering, Shiftry is faster due to Chlorophyll, and I didn't account for this detail because I was expecting to face it later. The problem now is that I need to one-shot Crodant with Brick Break or else Blaziken dies to Surf. And that means I must select Solar Beam with Sceptile, which is not great since Shiftry already has one double team setup, and I miss. Of course. Even worse, Torment is going to be a pain to deal with. Improvising a switch in this challenge can be dangerous by itself, but my teams for the Elite Four are also really tight, so I don't have a decent backup plan for situations like this. Anyway, while the battle on the right is almost over, I need to come up with something to save the left game. It would be pretty detrimental to set up Sunny Day again, so I decide to just go for the kill with Aerialist plus Flamethrower. At least a victory on the right will let me play the rest of the battle independently. There are two main problems I have to deal with. One is that I need to end this battle with a specific amount of HP in order to make a future strategy work. I would have had an easy time if Shiftry didn't come out so early, but this is not the case. And the other problem is that I need to accomplish my goal while dealing with Torment. Aerialist is not an option, so once Cacturne comes out, I go for Sunny Day. Cotton Spore scared him at first, but then I remembered Mightyena didn't use Sand Attack at all, so I still have my White Herb to counter the stat drop. 77 HP are coincidentally an ideal amount of HP to finish the battle, so hopefully I'll manage to end the fight without taking any more damage. I need to use Solar Beam first, and Cacturne uses Feint Attack. Sceptile special defense is really solid, no risk to die here, and I only lost 29 HP, so a Citrus Berry will bring me up to 78 later, which is just fine. So Aerialist to finish off Cacturne, and as Crodant comes out, I can simply go for the one-turn Solar Beam. Honestly, this should have gone much worse. I made a big mistake, and it's only thanks to my level advantage that I didn't get punished. As you advance to the next room, I want to remind you that I'm trying to do this without EVs, so even between Elite Four battles, I'm going to remove them if possible. Anyway, after the stressful battle against Sydney, I know I can now relax a bit. Phoebe should be easy. So, the strategy is really simple. Mightyena and Absol resist Shadow Punch, which is Dusclops' only damaging move. The first turn is free since I know Dusclops will use Protect, so I set up a substitute that will take 2 or 3 hits to be broken while protecting me from Curse and Confuse Ray. I have all the time in the world to set up Howl and Swords Dance. Ideally I want a +5 attack on Mightyena, but if things get ugly, I can settle for a +3. As you can see, I don't even need to replace the first substitute as Dusclops just keeps wasting turns. I said it before and I will say it again. Substitute is such a broken move. At least in Gen 3. No idea if the AI knows how to play around it in later generations. Anyway, thanks to the boosted attack, I'm now guaranteed to sweep Phoebe's team in both games. I find oddly satisfying to see a coordinated sweep like this. Just to give an insight while the battle plays itself out. This Absol almost didn't make it to the team for how terrible it is. It has a really low attack AV and a quiet nature that hinders its speed. Thankfully Phoebe's team is overall really slow, but still, I'm yet to find an Absol with decent stats. And speaking of Pokemon that can be good but are held back by bad AVs, I would have loved to replace the Sceptile on the left with Breloom. But the one I had was too slow to fulfill its purpose and couldn't even compensate with a decent attack. I'm bringing this up to introduce the battle against Glacia. Without a decent fighting type on the left, planning for the fight was much harder. Let's just see how we deal with her. Once again, I'm going to use Sceptile and Blaziken. The first turn Celio is guaranteed to use Hail, so in the meantime I go for Safeguard with Sceptile and for Bulk Up with Blaziken. Not that it needs the extra attack, but it doesn't hurt. What really hurts is the Hail, and I didn't account for it. You saw how important it was for me to have the correct amount of HP with Sceptile at the end of the battle versus Sydney, and now I have 10 HP less than planned. I literally could have used an Oran Berry to prevent this from happening. Not much I can do now, just need to dodge a crit. With the Hail setup, Bossilio should use Body Slam, and while Blaziken is going to protect, Sceptile needs to set up Sunny Day and take the damage to activate Overgrow. Come on, the Horror Run is a stake here. Nice. Another stupid mistake by me, but still no punishment. I'm really getting lucky this run. From here I should be fine. Much like I planned for Sydney, Solar Beam plus Brick Break will take care of most of Glacia's team. And I did account for the different order this time. It varies a bit since Blaziken is weak to water, but Glacia should send the level 52 Glalie last in both games. And that's all that matters. Having Overgrow active on Sceptile was especially important to one-shot the first Glalie, but the Faded Sunlight makes sure I cannot get away with using Solar Beam and Brick Break for the last Pokemon. So it's time to switch. I know an Ice Beam is coming from the Glalie on the left, and the one on the right is about to set up Hail, so I switch to Ludicolo and Gyarados. The idea is to use Rain Dance with Ludicolo while Gyarados sets up Dragon Dance. I'm sure the left Glalie sets up Hail now, and Gyarados should be able to tank a few hits, even though I have to be careful with that. Thanks to Swift Swim and Dragon Dance, my Pokemon are now faster, and I expect them to be able to two-shot Glalie with Surf and Return. Glalie tries to make things harder by freezing Gyarados, but I have a Lumberry for this exact reason. And here's the biggest oversight I made while planning for this battle. Two oversights really. First, I once again didn't account for the Hail damage, so Gyarados was actually risking a crit. Second, and most importantly, Glalie unsurprisingly used Hail again and got rid of my Rain Dance. So now Ludicolo is lower, and what we are looking at is a low HP Glalie with Explosion. Losing Ludicolo would be game over. I need to switch. But whatever I switch into is either going to risk to die from Explosion or will take quite a lot of damage from Ice Beam. I wasn't planning to use my Tien and Absol here, but if Glalie really explodes, getting an Intimidate off would prevent me from dying to a non-critical hit. However, while the Glalie on the right is healed, the one on the left just attacks with Ice Beam, so there's no way around it. I have to risk a crit. Unless I catch the Explosion with a substitute. But while my Tien is faster, this Absol, as I said, is really slow, and not only the left Glalie doesn't explode, but the one on the right lands a strong Ice Beam and freezes Absol. My Citrus Berry activate, but this is terrible. I don't really see a safe way out. Wait. Pause. It just occurred to me while reading the script that the AI cannot select Explosion or Self-Destruct with the last Pokemon. Or am I misremembering? If that's the case, I'm not going to look really smart here. Oh well, back to the video. After quite a bit of thinking, I decided to send out Tentacruel and Starmie, two Pokemon you didn't have the chance to see yet. Let's just hope to not see an Explosion crit. Okay, Ice Beam. Come on, you've gotta be kidding me. The worst part is that the game on the right is not even in a bad spot. It just can't do anything until the situation on the left is fixed. And how am I supposed to fix it with this RNG? I mean, it was about time to get punished, but all these freezes from Ice Beam are something else. If I sacrifice my Tiena, I can safely send out Raichu to finish off Glalie with Thunderbolt, but I'm still deathless, so I'll keep it as my last resort. Still, I'm willing to lose my Tiena. If it doesn't explode, it's a 50-50 between Ice Beam and Shadow Ball, while it's always going to be Shadow Ball for the right game. So I'll just go for the switch and see what happens. Another Intimidate is potentially really good, and Shadow Ball. My Tiana gets to live another day. The Hail stops too, but I know Glalie will prioritize the kill with Ice Beam, so I decide to give it a chance and send Tentacruel and Starmie back out. I'm not giving much attention to the game on the right, so sorry if this is getting too confusing, but in that game I don't have to worry about explosion, so Glalie is basically using Shadow Ball or Ice Beam, depending on what's more effective. Maybe I should give it some attention. An Ice Beam crit takes away half of Starmie's HP, so now there's no way around it. A sacrifice has to be made. Let's send out my Tiana and Absol and just be done with it. This time Glalie selects Ice Beam, so here it is, the first death of the challenge. Wingull the Mightyena won't be forgotten. At least we get to see what happens when a Pokémon dies. At the price of a death, the left game can send out the next Pokémon without risks, while the game on the right has to switch as soon as possible. So Electrode has to tank an Ice Beam. Really? Really, game? Like, it doesn't even matter all that much, but at this point it's just insulting. Also notice that I forgot to heal Raichu. I didn't expect to use it here at all, and Electrode was healed just enough to make walk a future plan. So even if it seems like another Ice Beam is for sure going to take it down, only a crit or the highest roll would kill it. Can I really be even more unlucky in this battle? Thankfully no. And Raichu finishes the painful battle on the left. So now I'm free to send out Blaziken on the right and end the fight as well. This could have been a sweep with a decent enough Breloom, but no. And if this battle, which I didn't anticipate being particularly hard, turned out to be such a terrible experience, I'm afraid to know what Drake has in store for me. Before showing you the battle, there's a little detail I want to address. At the start of the challenge, I talked about how easy it is to desync the two games, making the one controller rule effectively meaningless outside of battle. Even if there are not wild encounters or random NPC walking around here, I can still easily accomplish the same result by opening the Pokédex in both games. I don't have the same Pokémon, so it's easy to stack one of the two games into a random page, while the other does everything it needs in preparation for the next battle. And after this probably unnecessary explanation, time to face the last Elite Four member. The best thing to do against Drake is to bring a strong and fast Ice Beam user, and this is no exception. In this case, I decided to use Ludicolo and Starmie. While the latter is naturally really fast, Ludicolo is more on the slow side, so I need to exploit Swift Swim. Shelgon is very likely to go for Protect on the first turn, so I use Rain Dance with Ludicolo and Camouflage with Starmie. Never used this move before, and I'm excited to exploit it for the first time in a challenge like this. Turning Starmie into a normal type will fix the order in which Drake sends out his Pokémon. So now I can outspeed and take down Shelgon with Ice Beam. Altaria is the default second Pokémon, so it comes out in both games. Its special defense is really good, so despite a 4-time weakness to Ice, Ludicolo needed a Never Ice equipped to ensure the one-shot. The next Pokémon is the main problem. Ice is neutral against Kingdra, and that thing has Dragon Dance and Smokescreen to really mess me up. If it wasn't for Camouflage, Drake would be sending out its Crunch users on the right, and that would make things even harder. Still, my plan for Kingdra is shaky. Altaria and Flygon should be able to take it down with a couple of Dragon Claws, but a lot can go wrong. For example, Altaria can get its accuracy dropped by Smokescreen on the switch. Dragon Dance is not the best either, but can't really complain. Kingdra outspeeds and managed to drop Flygon's accuracy as well, while Altaria has to eat a Body Slam. But my Pokémon don't let me down, and both managed to land the first Dragon Claw. Okay, Flygon, chill. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but now you will have to deal with a mirror match, and don't forget your accuracy has been dropped by one stage. At least the rain stopped, so Kindra's Swift Swim is no longer active. But Altaria misses the second Dragon Claw, while Flygon keeps hitting hard and doesn't even have to worry about a paralysis from Dragon Breath thanks to Alarm Berry. I'm in crit range though, and I have no choice but to stay in until Altaria disposes of Kingdra. And it better be done soon, because Kingdra is now at +2 attack and speed. Wait, why did the enemy Flygon use Crunch? That doesn't really make any sense. And yes, I missed Dragon Claw in both games. So now it's either I hit or Flygon dies here. I need Flygon for the champion, but I'd rather gamble for the 75% chance of hitting rather than making multiple and dangerous switches. Not much I can do except crossing my fingers, and yes, Flygon lands the second Dragon Claw. but missing with Altaria would also put me in serious trouble. Okay, what a relief. Now I just need to send out my Ice Beam users again. This switch was supposed to be made against Flygon in both sides, but things didn't go as smoothly as I hoped, and therefore Starmie has to tank a really scary Dragon Claw. As I said, this Starmie is terrible, and with literally an IV of 0 on the special defense, it was dead to half of the crit rolls. But the crit didn't happen, so let's proceed to take care of Salamence with Ice Beam. The one shot is guaranteed, so the battle on the right is over, while Ludicolo, which had no chance of setting up Rain Dance first, will have to tank a hit before landing its attacks. I don't risk to die against Flygon, but a crit from Salamence would kill me for sure, so I do the right thing and switch for Tentacruel. A relaxed nature makes sure that after tanking a Rock Slide on the switch, I only die to a max roll crit, but at the same time the hindered speed doesn't allow me to attack first. Ice Beam is not even guaranteed to kill, but even if it doesn't, Salamence should be in potion range despite the Citrus Berry. Drake has 2 full restores, so I basically get 3 chances to hit a 50% range. Wait, you are not supposed to attack me. Okay, at least no crit, but I had to check later. Basically, I got the lowest roll possible so that Salamence had 1 too many HP to trigger the full restore. Imagine losing a key Pokémon to something like that right before the final battle. I don't care, it didn't happen, and I don't want to think about it. Drake is down, let's move on. I didn't really mention it before, but what you're seeing is my very first attempt. And whatever happens, there's a reason why this video took so long. Planning for these battles and playing through this challenge was really time consuming. So it's understandable that as I approach the champion room, I am quite nervous. I have a plan, I know something can go wrong, and I'm also aware that my plan can turn out to be inaccurate. No reason to delay the last battle any longer. Wallace, here we go. When I write a script for a video, I often go back to verify if I was dead to a crit or if I had to hit a particular range. In this case, I can't help but feeling a bit stupid. When I was calculating the Thunderbolt damage on Wailord, I made a mistake while adding the Badge Boost. So while I thought Electrode was guaranteed to kill thanks to the Magnet, Thunderbolt only had a 70% chance to take down Wailord. I'm so glad I got the range, I ran a huge risk without even knowing. So lucky start, but not a good sign for the rest of the plan. Anyway, my 2 pure electric type will now bait the Earthquake users. Thankfully, Gyarados gets the priority over Whiscash, so I can basically take down another Pokémon for free. The reason behind the not fully healed Electrode is that I don't want to replicate what happened in the battle against One. At 127 HP, I can be sure Whiscash is going for the kill with Earthquake, so I know what I'm switching into. Sceptile doesn't take much damage and Flygon is altogether immune thanks to Levitate. I had to use a couple of TMs before the battle, and you can see Sceptile has Giga Drain and Protect now, while on Flygon I replaced Dragon Claw for Earthquake. This Flygon was blessed with a good Grass-type hidden power, and there's a Miracle Seed boosting it a bit, but of course I don't expect it to one-shot Whiscash. Sceptile on the other hand is guaranteed to get the kill, and in the meantime the Whiscash on the right managed to set up one Amnesia. All according to plan. Except that Flygon is the only Pokémon I forgot to edge before starting the Elite Four, so it's still at level 55, and lacking a level is going to give Whiscash a chance to survive the next attack. Seems like I got a pretty high roll with hidden power at least, so while Sceptile uses Protect, I can reasonably expect to finish off Whiscash with Earthquake. And I do. Not exactly sure why Wallace sends out Tentacruel third on the right, while it chose Milotic on the left, but I have enough experience about this battle to not be surprised. In fact, I was hoping for this to happen. Going for a second Protect with Sceptile means I'm risking to fail and die to a crit if Milotic selects Ice Beam, but that's a reasonable gamble. Tentacruel can be a menace, so being able to one-shot it right away with Earthquake is huge. Protect even works, so this is going as smoothly as possible for now. As expected, the other Ice Beam user comes out, so let the Milotic plan begin. I should have used Ludicolo and Starmie as a pivot to avoid an Ice Beam on Gyarados, but in the heat of the moment I didn't think of doing it, so I went straight for Tentacruel and Gyarados. And look, another Ice Beam freeze. Thankfully I did play around it and Alarm Berry defrost Tentacruel. Now first of all I want to use Swagger. Gyarados is lower and has to tank an Ice Beam though, and seriously, another freeze? The Alarm Berry on Gyarados was meant to counter Toxic more than anything, but I guess this works too. Meanwhile, the Milotic on the left hurts itself in confusion, so Tentacruel is in a very good spot compared to Gyarados. If Gyarados has to go down, so be it. I can arrange some kind of plan B for Wallace's last 2 Pokemon, I hope. So I recklessly go for Screech and Dragon Dance. Screech hits, and the Milotic on the right hurts itself in confusion. The left one snaps out though, but Tentacruel is a really good special wall, so I'm not too afraid of it taking damage. I need to set up a bit more with Gyarados, so I use Screech and Dragon Dance again. Screech hits again, and while the still confused Milotic doesn't hurt itself, it goes for recover, which is completely fine. Okay, one last time. Screech hits, Dragon Dance puts Gyarados a +3 attack and speed, Milotic lands a big crit versus Tentacruel, but I'm getting a really long confusion on the right, and that Milotic, once again, hurts itself. I think we got it. Sludge Bomb will one-shot Milotic since it's at -6 defense, and with such a boosted attack, Gyarados will make short work of it as well with Return. So Milotic is finally down, but now both games will have to deal with Ludicolo, and while it might seem like a much easier Pokemon to deal with, it has Double Team and Leech Seed, so it's not to be underestimated. And I say so just before underestimating it. Wingull the Mightyena sacrificed itself for a good cause, and it would be an insult to its memory letting a comrade fall when there's a way to save it. Selecting Return with Gyarados would win me the run on the right, while dealing a great amount of damage to the Ludicolo on the left with Sludge Bomb, but that would mean to sacrifice Tentacruel, and I don't want to. So I take one last risk and use Rest instead. Of course, now Ludicolo gets to set up double teams. At least no Leech Seed, but I'm starting to regret my decision already. I decide to try and land a Screech as soon as possible to avoid triggering a full restore with Sludge Bomb. Ludicolo only has 2 double teams set up, but I can't deny I was surprised to land Screech as soon as Tentacruel woke up. The extra Dragon Dance doesn't matter for Gyarados, and now all I need to do is to hit Ludicolo once. Not gonna be easy. I miss with both, and Ludicolo keeps on raising its evasiveness. Come on, just one hit? Yes, and in both games at the same time. So while I still have to deal with Tentacruel on the left, I've officially won the run on the right. I'm going to play this mirror match for no longer than I need to. 3 Sludge Bombs will put the enemy Tentacruel in yellow, and I shouldn't even risk a crit in the process. Once I've done that, I pivot through Altaria to bait an Ice Beam so that I can send out Raichu without risking an Hydro Pump crit. I don't have a Lumberry this time, so please don't freeze me. Okay, I win. Raichu outspeeds, and Thunderbolt is enough to secure the kill. So it's with great pleasure that I can say this challenge has been beaten. I won on the first attempt, and at least one of the 2 games managed to reach the end deathless. I enjoyed playing this challenge a lot. I had the chance to use a good variety of Pokemon, and planning for the battles was really intense, even if more often than not my plans turned out to be inaccurate. This video is far longer than I expected, and I realized that having so much stuff on screen at the same time might have made it difficult to follow all the way through. So for those still watching, thank you. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I might consider doing a similar challenge in the future if I see you enjoy this one. The next video will for sure be a solo run, and I'm excited to start playing it after taking a break for a couple of days. Not much else to say, so you have a nice day. And as for me, back to theory crafting.